concepts.
Nope.
Like when I was young, 1.5 million years ago. Go ahead.
I was going to say
you were about to say something.
I didn't say anything.
You were going to be like, I didn't realize that they had other races back at the time of the dinosaurs.
Welcome to the Beacon House Podcast, recorded live in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Some people call me the space cowboy. Some call me the gangster of love. Some call me an asshole, and I tend to believe the latter.
Cowboy.
Oh, gross.
Oh, man.
Was that a kid?
Cowboy.
Was that is that Kid Rock?
I don't. Is that were you quoting Kid Rock?
They call me a cowboy.
No, don't, please.
Yeah, you're gross. Don't make me have two bones to pick with you today.
Oh, my God, don't.
Guys, welcome to another episode of the Beacon House Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Casey.
I'm another one, Spence.
I'm here, and my name is Hunter.
Cool. So now we can get into it.
We got that out of the way. Yeah, we're told
hate
Casey's
you two.
Casey's mad at us.
You two wasted 2 hours of my fucking life.
We did?
It's a movie. What did we do to you?
What movie? What's wrong?
Can you guess? Can you just think about it for a second?
Us?
I had to watch a movie, which, by the way, there are good points in this movie, but way too many bad points to give it any kind of credibility.
I have no idea.
Give us 3 hints. Let us see if we can figure it out. 3 hints.
Dunkirk, Saving Private Ryan,
1917.
In 1917. Those are your 3 clues.
Fury?
Fury.
You motherfuckers.
You didn't like Fury?
That garbage movie.
Whoa.
Listen, I have notes. And before we get into it, because I know Zeke will probably listen to this, the tank battles were great. Like the actual tank battles themselves, great.
Was there anything else in the movie besides that?
You didn't like seeing the deconstruction of the mental psyche of American soldiers abroad that were trying to save a country they did.
If that's what David Ayers was trying to go for.
The scene with the egg.
Honestly,
egg,
can I be like really honest?
Sure.
David Ayers should stick with his circle jerk cop movies and not do a war movie ever again.
Who's that? Is that the director?
That's the writer-director. He did End of Watch. Depending on who you believe, he did Suicide Squad. He did not do Suicide Squad, the studio.
Also, and to be fair, I could have gone into this with a completely wrong mindset. Mm-hmm. I tried to go in with a clean mindset of Spencer and Hunter love this, so I've got to love it. Like there's no way I cannot like it.
Wrong mindset.
The blatant, first of all, just right out of the gate, the first scene is Brad Pitt tackling some dude off a white horse. The blatant symbolism that he is going to like kill death, who rolls in on a pale horse kind of thing, and then he like sends it on its way. It screamed so loud because I knew it was a very churchy movie anyways. What you guys told me about like
churchy?
Shia LaBeouf's scene where he quotes Isaiah was my favorite part of the movie.
You know what's funny? I don't remember either of those scenes in the movie.
No?
Neither of those things were anything I
don't remember that either, Casey, but the fact that that's what you taking that from it makes me love you even more.
Yeah, that's interesting that those things stuck with you because they went right by me.
But because
I watched him jump off the tank onto the Nazi on a pale horse, and it was all I could think about was behold the pale horse, and the man who sat on him was dead, and hell followed with him.
Interesting.
And when Brad Pitt tackles him off, stabs him to death, and then sets the horse free, and you're like, so he's like above death. He's not afraid of death.
When I hear that, I just think of Tombstone.
I do love Tombstone.
Tombstone is where it did immortalize that to me.
I heard David Ayers is remaking Tombstone.
I'm
just kidding.
No.
The next thing I had a problem with was the fact that they threw the kid into the tank position. Mm-hmm. He was like, I type 60 words a minute and this and that. Like I was supposed to be in an office. The fact that somebody actually let David Ayers write that in the script, that a military force would take someone like that and go, hey, you're driving second in a tank now. There's no fucking way. There's no way that would happen. And then he has such a problem with killing people.
Okay.
We also said that about our moral high ground in regards to what the people did at Abu Ghraib, or I'm probably saying that wrong, but the prisoners that were stripped naked and tortured by American soldiers.
Honestly, the biggest problem I had is this next one is the bullet traces.
Like
in the movie, when the Allies forces shoot at the Nazis, it's red bullet traces. It looks like a Star Wars movie. It's like pew, 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 like you see red. And then when the Nazis shoot back, it's green lasers. And so then it shows this wide shot of an open field, and you see red and green lasers just going across the field of each other. And I went, what the fuck is this?
Did you do Molly before you watched it?
Do you remember that?
No.
I don't either.
And then when explosions would happen, it was just like somebody like hit 2 rocks. It looked like fucking fireworks.
I want to watch it again now.
It
I don't
looks
remember
so
any of
bad.
that.
I don't remember
It
any of
looks
that.
so. I'll pull it up on my phone.
But
I swear to God.
No, I'm not.
No, we
discredit-
believe you.
We
Yeah.
believe you. I just remember being.
I don't
All I
remember
remember is
that.
being entertained by the story and the acting.
Yeah, I love the acting, and I loved.
So
I don't recall anything about the realism or the accuracy or anything except for the tanks. There was some extreme historical significance of the Tiger tank.
yeah,
Sure.
And that it was like really if you were apparently if you were soldiers and you were in that position in that country or whatever and you saw one of those, that usually meant you're never going to see your family again.
Sure.
That meant you're doomed.
Yeah.
Like it was one of the most incredible technological advances, and just the story that they managed to somehow think of a way to disable it. Most, like that was to me very exhilarating.
and that's what I from the start. The tanks and the tank battles were great. However, that was only about 30 minutes of this 2-hour movie.
Sure. I was really mostly what I was attracted to story and acting was the acknowledgement that bad people can do good things and the willingness to go on a suicide mission because it's the right thing to do, which is what Shia LaBeouf's Isaiah speech was, where the thing about they're surrounded and they're not going to win, and the Lord says, "Who will go?" and he says, "Send me." Is the thing. Like it's very evocative of 300. I've got a major hard on for the idea that you look at a situation and go, "This is wrong, and we're going to fight it, and we're not going to live to see the victory, but it's worth dying for." I love that.
That's an interesting segue into our current.
I don't think we're ready to segue. He's got
We're
more
not ready
notes.
there yet. But
yeah.
it's funny that you say that in today's episode.
Brad Pitt's character in this movie is just a discount version of what he plays in Inglourious Basterds.
You are 100% correct about that.
And it's such garbage.
100%
All
correct
David
about
Ayers did is what, hey, I saw Inglourious Basterds. I really liked you. Just play that character, but don't lose the Southern accent.
Yeah.
I don't like Southern people.
You're not wrong at all. It's the pseudo sequel.
Also, so you guys were talking about the psyche or whatever from the egg scene. Mm-hmm. That whole scene with them going into the girl's house, forcing them to cook breakfast, and then the other guys come in and berate, and then like the guy, Brad Pitt looks at the young kid and is like, "You better take that girl in there and fuck her, or I'm gonna do it." And then he goes and does it. And she's crying, and then like they go in the room, and then she's not crying, and then she's smiling, and then they have sex, and then she's still smiling, and then she comes back out, and then John Brenenthal comes in and is like, "Fuck you," and then she starts crying again. I was like, this scene is emotionally draining. I don't know what the fuck is going on.
Okay, so but that is in keeping with David Ayers' track record. End of Watch, I think, is the most unlike that in general. If you consider that he wrote Training Day and then watched Training Day and go, no one in this is actually really that good, including the good guy. Then you've got Fury, and then again studio interference, but you look at Suicide Squad, David Ayer is clearly attracted to stories about bad people doing good things. So you're not wrong, but that's what I loved about it, is that he was like...
And then they started talking about horses, and all the guys started crying.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And then they all like chippered back up, and then they were like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just drunk." And then they be shitty to the girls again, and then they leave, and then the building blows up and the two girls die. And I was like, what was the fucking point? Like, I was kind of expecting her to show up later, maybe, and maybe having a redeeming quality for one of the bad guys. Like, she forget. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that whole 30 minutes of him, like, they go in, they just because these are two German women, they're like, "Fuck you.
Yeah.
We're going to run all over this place."
Well,
and then they leave and the building blows up and they die.
To be fair, that's how a lot of American soldiers were with anybody. It wasn't just German women. It was like anywhere they were. Like my dad was stationed in the Philippines during World War II, and he said that most of the American soldiers were just like
Pigged?
Well, I mean, they're young people in a crazy situation, and most of them aren't like the most educated people. I mean, they come from all over. It could be a variety of people, but they're stuck in these foreign countries and just trying to survive and keep their wits about them. And sometimes they accomplish that pretty
heinously.
But
that's what I loved about it. It's because traditionally the Allies are portrayed as the saviors that ride in on a white horse, to use a different metaphor, to kind of clean up the Nazis. And I think it's inarguable that we were historically on the right side with the side we chose to fight with, but that doesn't mean that we were paragons of good going into the battle either.
That's accurate. And I'm pretty sure in that scene, again, it's been a long time since I've seen it, and I don't remember having any attachment to the plot at all. Like when the house blew up and the girls, like I just remember it made me feel things. And that's kind of the only thing I was expecting out of that movie, is it made me feel certain stuff. You and I clearly look for different things in movies.
World War II movies. There's certain movies where we see eye to eye on.
Sure, but
it looks like war movies. We kind of.
I didn't notice the tracer, the realism. I didn't notice like any of the like the guy that they put in the tank. All the things you said, I don't remember any of that stuff, and I certainly don't remember being bothered by it. But I remember being attracted to the way the movie made me feel. Like it was both.
Interesting.
It was exciting, but also hopeless. Like at the same time, just like the stuff you're talking about. Like I feel like in that scene, Brad Pitt. His character did some of the things he did to protect the people in the house. Like he knew his soldiers are going to come in and be terrible to him, and I think that's why he did some of this. But then again, he also was kind of a piece of shit too.
See, I got that too, but like the point Casey's making as well, I think, is that they shouldn't have been that way to begin with.
No, my whole thing was movie making in general. That 30-minute scene, probably wasn't 30. It was probably like 15 minutes. It served no purpose.
Other than psychological torture.
Not even that. It served no purpose other than just be like, these guys are shitty. These girls are victims. Oh, no, wait, they're Nazi sympathizers. Never mind. Now you're not supposed to like them. Oh, wait, now they're crying again. Now you're supposed to feel bad. Now they're dead. And then they just move on to the next. Like, they'd never come up again. Like, the guys never talk. Like, at the very end when they're consoling each other in the tank, no one ever brings it up how they feel bad about what they did at that house. Nothing ever happens again. They don't bring it up. It's just like it was a weird filler episode of a TV show in the middle of this movie. And it could have been taken out and the movie would have been fine.
I think that's fair.
It's fair.
I do personally like it because I think it portrays the grayness of the entire situation. But
same.
You're not wrong. I think it could be removed and it'd be fine.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
I feel like back when it first came out, there was supposed to be.
It also came out 2014. I need to be a little nicer because it's 6-year-old.
Well, there's also some things like I'm pretty sure the movie was definitely not supposed to be like an accurate portrayal. It was more supposed to be sort of a fiction based around a couple of things that they wanted to celebrate, like the Tiger tank and like the technology of the era. And I think they wanted to get the tanks right, the tank battles right, and the grittiness of the soldiers. And I don't think they were really trying to be historically accurate beyond that.
And that shows from like 45 minutes in.
Well, but also I remember back in the day, a lot of people had the same issues. Now that I think of it, you're mentioning other people took issue with that too. So you didn't really have people that could be convinced that Fury was a good movie. You either had people who liked it or people who didn't like it, and they both had real specific reasons. So I mean, I get it. I totally get it. If I watched it by myself, and loved it, just sitting there watching the things that were happening. However,
I also watched it by myself. So
if I would have been watching it like with you guys, or somebody would have said something like, "Dude, wait, what did he just say?" Why? I might have thought, "Hey, yeah, that is kind of silly."
That's a good point.
And then my last two notes that I have are this captain. Oh, captain, my captain bullshit is tired. Like whenever Brad Pitt's like, "We're gonna do it," and they're all like, "Yeah, we're gonna do it," and it's just like, okay, got it. And then the last thing I had the problem with the last final fight scene in the middle of the night where their tank's stuck and they're shooting and this whole battle's going on. Right in the middle of it, there's like a 30-second scene where a German general's giving his troops a morale speech in the middle of the fight. I'm like, what are you doing? What the fuck is happening here? Like he's walking through like troops lined up and he's like giving this big like inspirational speech to his soldiers and then they all rush the tank and that's when shit happens. And you're like, why? Because gunfire's still going off. Why are you just standing in place?
So if I may, the internal logic doesn't work to your point, which I support, but narratively, because if I'm remembering it correctly, because it's been a long time, I think also somewhere in that scene there was a German soldier that found them that decided to not try to kill them or something like that happened. I think it was drawing a parallel between both sides, because what the German general or whatever is doing is the same thing you were saying you didn't like that Brad Pitt would do from time to time, and they would get all bloodthirsty and just charge in. Yeah. I think it was trying to, which kind of is the whole point of the movie, I guess, from a thematic standpoint, but I think it was just like there was an objective right and wrong side of this, but the individual nitty-gritty of the people involved with fighting for each side are more similar than history kind of allows for in conversation.
Yeah. Also, Brad Pitt forcing him to kill a Nazi, I was like, I guess I understand it because he's a part of this team, and if he has a problem with killing people, that's going to put them at risk. But like holding him down and like forcing the gun in his hand and forcing him to pull the trigger to shoot a hole in the back of that guy, I was like, fuck.
Man, I don't remember a lot of this movie.
I remember that stuff.
I think when I said I love the movie Fury, I correctly should have said
I like tank battles.
tank
I
battles?
love the 20% of the movie Fury that I remember.
And that's the 20% that I liked.
Like, I don't remember all this other stuff, but either way, like, I get it. I get it.
I just, you could
Mental
definitely
note, don't
tell,
watch Fury with Casey.
You could definitely tell that this movie was written by David Ayers because you can just, like, watching his new show, Deputy, watching End of Watch, Sabotage, like, all these cop movies.
Fuck, Sabotage was
They're
him.
all this, like, macho man, fucking hell yeah, brother, but then also, like, but you gotta respect God, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And then there's always that one chick who like looks at the guys and they're you know, she's always just like, you guys are a bunch of pussies, and then lifts way more weights than they do. I don't get it.
I'm with you, but I love
David Ayers.
Ayers.
Is so cliche. It's not even.
I don't know.
I'm with you
I've
100%,
never seen
but I
any
love all of
shows.
it. No, Sabotage is amazing. It's
a movie with Arnold. Where
it's
they're
an Arnold
SWAT team.
Schwarzenegger movie. It's a remake, a retooling, one should say, of 10 Little Indians, I think, by Agatha Christie.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You would never think it watching it, but it was originally called 10, and then they changed it to Sabotage. Like, that was his whole thing.
I don't understand. He must have been raised like hardcore Catholic, because that is the only explanation.
Usually people that are raised hardcore Catholic turn into the biggest atheist you've ever met.
Not David Ayers.
Strange.
I don't know. I think there's an interesting dichotomy between the horrible things people do that have genuine faith in a Judeo-Christian higher power that cannot be reconciled against each other, but that doesn't mean that the condition of their heart is one that disallows for either thing to be possible, because mankind is fucked up, and I think that's kind of what he's...
Yeah.
That's a broad statement.
No,
I agree with it.
It is. It's
that's
a
just a lot
platitude.
that's a lot to unpack.
It's a huge
And
platitude, 100%.
You know what's weird
but-
is I expected to go into Fury not liking Shia LaBeouf, and by the end of the movie, he was the only one I
favorite
liked.
character in the movie.
That's how I felt on his episode of Hot Ones.
Oh God, he's so good.
So funny on
You
Hot
bastard.
Ones.
Yeah.
Well, on another hot topic.
Another hot one. So the world went crazy again. The movie has zigged and zagged.
So, wait a
this
minute.
crazy movie that we're in.
The simulation?
So no, let's hold on.
sorry.
Let's take tally real quick. January was World War III with the trade deals with China. There was threats of World War III. February we had the Australian wildfires, where half the world pretty much burnt down because Australia burnt, and then also the Amazon caught on fire.
March was COVID hit.
March was COVID.
April was protesting COVID.
No, murder hornets.
Oh, fuck, you're right.
And then May was riots.
yeah.
And then June, apparently Yellowstone has been getting a lot of active earthquakes recently. So June, who knows?
If that blows, we're all fucked.
Oh, it blows. This year blows. This year blows
I
completely.
kind of want it to blow because that'll really bring people closer together, because everyone will have to stay inside for like 3 years.
Some people reason that a lot of the rioting is not just a reaction to the murder, but a reaction to being cooped up and just like having
Nothing to do.
just needing to run outside, and that, which I don't necessarily know. I don't know, but
I think it's fair to say that's a facet of it, but only a facet. I think it's unfair to say that people were cooped up for 2 months and now they're destroying everything. That's
Have you guys know anybody that was directly impacted by the riots?
A couple businesses downtown.
Yeah, I heard that there were helicopters all over Knoxville last night, flying even in West Knoxville.
Yeah.
Yep.
A lot of people that I know were on Facebook going, "Why are there helicopters in my neighborhood?"
Yep.
Like they were afraid. They said they heard gunshots.
Yep.
Like all over town. And
Gunshots in West Knoxville.
some people are saying now that was just fireworks, but
I didn't see or hear any fireworks.
Did you see in Dallas they were spraying rubber bullets, and one of them struck a girl just walking home from a grocery store? She wasn't even there to protest. And the picture
hit him.
you see on the internet
With the bloody face
is
and
the
all that?
cop holding her head like this, and she just has blood pouring down her face.
yeah.
She wasn't even there to do anything. She was just trying to go home.
Yep.
So my initial that kind of leads into when all this stuff really started to go crazy, like yesterday. My initial reaction was stop, rioting is wrong, 2 wrongs don't make a right. I think I even texted you guys like apparently 1,300 and some odd wrongs do make a right.
You did. I remember
Sarcastically, like that. And since then, I have seen a lot of information. I realized that it's not that simple. But what has it been like for you guys? Just observing like people burning down AutoZone, looting Target. Did you see that video at Target where people were just pushing carts out, TVs out, and shopping carts?
That, to me, okay. So my initial reaction to the looting of Target was those free TVs and Nerf guns and Xboxes and the lamps you're taking and everything that you're stealing from Target isn't going to bring any positive response or any change. However, I'm in no position to tell you how to feel the way you should feel. So if that's what you think you should do, go for it.
Yeah, I think, Spencer, that you're wrong in saying it's not that simple because the circumstances are not simple at all, which is what you're hinting at. But the decision to riot and destroy is simple, and it's wrong, and I think heinous, and I think hyper-violent against people that didn't do anything to you.
Right. Well, now, and that's how there's still a large part of me that feels that way. But just playing devil's advocate from some of the people, like, again, and I think I talked about this on the podcast this year, one of the things I learned in therapy is consider the source.
No, sure.
When you have information that comes to you that you have trouble assimilating, or that you just get mad about, or that hurts you or concerned, or whatever, anything that affects you, one of the first things you need to do is consider the source. And so I kind of started looking away from people that I don't really care about their opinion. Not trying to be in an echo chamber, but just people that generally are kind of hyperbolic. I started looking to people I know that are really level-headed and seeing kind of what they had to say. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to just form an opinion out of a reaction to, like, criminals. You know, I wanted to kind of be like, what? Because it wasn't just happening, which is bizarre. How bizarre is it that it happened all over the country?
Yeah.
A friend of mine
very
had
much like 1992.
A friend of mine was stopped on the interstate in Los Angeles and had his window busted out while he was trying to drive home from work. Shattered his window on him.
New York, Chicago, St. Louis.
There's another methodology that's coming up, and it's kind of rising. And again, I'm not saying I agree with them. I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate to speak for all the different sides. You know what I'm saying? To try and understand, like, how could this many people feel like it's right to do
you
this?
got to think about it. When peaceful protest doesn't work, and you put people in a position, you back them in a corner where they're trying to do the right thing, they're trying to be peaceful, and that's not getting any change done, you kind of force their hand to do drastic things.
Something to get attention.
Whether you agree with it or not, it's getting everyone's attention.
You guys have probably seen this. They said, don't tell me all lives matter, because that's like saying when you have a house on fire in a neighborhood, that's like saying, and the fire department shows up and they start spraying water on the one house. Go, stop. All houses matter. Well, this is the one that's on fire. And my response to that was, that's a terrible analogy.
It is a terrible analogy.
Because all houses do matter, and you do go where the fire is. And these are two completely separate situations. And that's a terrible analogy that you make a meme out of, and it sounds good on Instagram, and 50,000 people get stupid because of it.
Well, that's what I said to...
It's unrelated, you know what I mean? Like,
however, I will say people who say all lives matter I feel like they don't get the full point.
And
which is, it's not Black Lives Matter only, it's Black Lives Matter also.
yes.
I didn't think I'd see two situations where the phrase "I can't breathe" would be the biggest pushing point. Like saying you have the guy in New York who got choked out and died because he couldn't breathe, and he kept saying "I can't breathe," and that brought up "I can't breathe" hashtag "I can't breathe."
Yeah.
And then this guy, like, how many people have to be choked out before it's like that's not how you restrain somebody anymore?
And it's horrible too. Not only the guy who did it, but the other officers who stood there and let it happen.
That's what those guys should also get in trouble.
I mean,
They should have pulled him off.
Yeah, and it should have been. They should have grabbed the guy. Go, dude, stop! You're killing him. Stop! There is a systematic problem, and it does warrant plenty of outrage.
But I don't think violence is the answer. And no matter what your stance on the riots, I think you're entitled to feel the way that you feel 110%. But the riots are violent. The protests aren't, but the riots are.
Exactly.
To draw that line.
And so many of the protests turn into riots because one guy throws a beer bottle. We'll get into that because there's some other things that happened.
And that's a fair point.
Oh, you mean how it's just white folks starting the problem?
Other people showed up and did things.
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
And then they left.
We'll get to that real quick.
That's really conspiracy theorist stuff.
Well, we'll talk about it. But I sent you guys, I pulled 3 pictures off of social media just to get your guys' opinions on them. And the very first one was posted by somebody that I admire and trust, and it said, I'll read it, I'll give you guys to look at. I want to get your opinions on this. And this is after I had spent a whole day being mad at all the white guilt and just like, I've never been racist. I've never done anything wrong. I don't support violence. Like, how come I'm being made to feel like I'm somehow responsible for all this? Like, I was frustrated. But this one says, it's not enough just to be a good person. Even if you personally have never actively engaged in a racist act, you, me, all of us have benefited from a system built for us and against black, brown persons of color. What's your guys' take on that?
I agree.
What do you think? Where are you at on it, Hunter?
I'm thinking, sorry.
Me personally, I can't disagree with that because I did grow up with that system.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up rich, and I didn't grow up privileged. And I spent a lot of years serving food to a lot of minorities that have way more opportunities than I had, that have a lot of their education paid for, and you know what I mean? And a lot of them, if I'm being frank, act like spoiled brats. And they're rude to me and everybody that works at my restaurant, but there is truth to that. And maybe it didn't happen here in my town, but it certainly has happened in other places, and it certainly was happening in Minneapolis.
Yeah, I would say that is totally fair, and that I have, because I don't think historically you can argue otherwise. But
put it this way, when you get pulled over by a cop, are you afraid of getting a ticket, or are you afraid of getting shot?
That's right.
No, that's fair. I'm afraid of getting a ticket.
I'm afraid of getting a ticket.
Yeah.
However, I know some people who are dear friends of mine who are afraid of getting shot, and that's a problem.
Oh, I was written a ticket by an angry officer 5 years ago, but I didn't even know that was a problem.
Yeah.
And then said, you go ahead and do the ticket, but do you mind if we pull into this parking lot because I have to take medicine because I was not okay.
Right.
He busted you for heroin.
No, but he...
Needles!
He screamed at me and said that I was not allowed to take medicine and to sit there. And his friend came in with a flashlight and checked my car out. And I was having a diabetic episode that was going untreated because I was not allowed to pull off the road to take medicine.
I would imagine it's hard for you to listen to people go, well, look, you don't have to worry when you get pulled over.
It's hard for me, yeah.
It's hard for you to hear that to people say just because you're white because of what you've been through.
Yeah, because I don't disagree at all with the problem behind what either of you is saying. I agree with that, but I'm like, but pretending that I don't
have problems.
Yeah. I have a problem with.
But I will point out that was one instance out of how many times you've been pulled over.
I have had a similar instance every time I've been pulled over but one, which has been 6 times.
Did you have a diabetic episode every time you got pulled over?
No.
Does anxiety send you into a diabetic episode?
No. Well, actually, stress can.
Oh, okay.
But no.
Did they confiscate your pancreas?
But what I'm saying is, like, people go, if you're... your point of, are you afraid of a ticket or getting shot, totally fair. Not trying to push back against that at all. But the point that people will put out there where they go, yeah, but you're white, so you'll get a warning or yada, yada. I'm like, no, I get fucked up every time. And literally every time I've been pulled over, except one, it was not something that I did wrong. It was something that was somebody else's fault, as far as like the vehicle I was in goes.
Right.
And that's a different argument. But just the point is, I hadn't done something, and I also didn't know that something was wrong to begin with. And when I expressed that, I still got... Like, sure. I didn't get off free is my point.
Right.
So it's not...
In another instance, I want to bring up the Books A Million incident.
It's not like if you're white and you get pulled over, they hand you a bag of tacos.
The Books A Million incident where the guy
this.
showed up with the needle. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Do you think that would have happened differently if you were a person of color? Do you think
Yeah, I
they would
think
have
it
been a
would've been
little more...
For sure.
Okay.
I agree with that.
And so there's not really any getting around that. We did grow up differently than some of the people that, like that guy that got his neck crushed in by this cop. We didn't have the same backstory as him, and we can't. And so again, because it was someone who I respected that posted that, at first I was like, now hang on a minute. And then I was like, well, wait a minute. And I kind of got my ego out of the way, and I kind of tried to lean into it a little bit and go, what can I learn from this? Somebody smart posted this. Somebody smart shared this, and I don't want to be reactionary like the people that are busting in windows. Like, I want to find if there's something to learn here, I want to learn it, And then the next one, also from somebody I trust, and she posted, it said, what should I do with my white privilege? And I was like, God, really? Again? Like, this is a matter of violence. But listen, and it said 4 things. She says, 1, you should teach other white folks the barriers to success for people of color. Teach other people that are white the problems that people have if they're persons of color, if they don't know, assuming they don't know. I feel like we have a pretty well-rounded friend group, and I don't have to explain to my friends to not be racist.
Yeah.
But it says, promise to listen to and amplify the voices of persons of color. Be more than not racist, but be actively anti-racist. And that, to me, was one of the most interesting things, because I've always been not a racist. I've never in my life had one single racist thought or bone in my body, and I've thought it was absolutely erroneous that anybody would feel that way. Like, I just couldn't believe that racism was still alive, that people were dumb enough to believe it for any reason. But I haven't protested against it. I've not stood and held a sign. You know what I mean? I thought that maybe I was contributing to the solution by just not being the problem. Mm-hmm. But now they're saying, and this is a new ideology, like it's not enough. Like you've got to go out and do your part too to stop this. And then the last thing kind of goes along with that. Confront racial injustices even when it's uncomfortable.
Which would be protesting, which is uncomfortable, not rioting. This is
again, none of this supports busting windows and setting buildings on fire and hitting people and throwing bricks through windows of cars, and none of this pops that up. But what do you think about that one? What do you think about that? It's basically saying
my thing. Can I see it real quick?
It's not enough to just be white and not be a piece of shit. You need to also contribute to the solution.
But my problem with a lot of that stuff that's going around right now is not that I disagree with it, but that I disagree with the absolutionist mindset of it.
Talk about that.
My wife and I talked about this because the kneeling didn't work for you thing is a thing that people are pushing around right now. And like you said, it looks good on Instagram and then it makes 50 people stupid real quick.
Sure.
That's a fair criticism because all kinds of people got up in arms. And anyone that has a memory worth half a damn that was around me when that was going on would know that my answer to that was, if you have a problem with that, I don't understand why you're upset, because he disagrees with something that he sees as socially unjust or whatever, and he is peacefully protesting it without harming anyone. He is well within his rights to do so, and regardless of whether or not you agree with it, he's doing it the way it's supposed to be done, and he should be allowed to do it and respected for doing it that way.
Right.
But the blanket statement, kneeling didn't work for you, and I'm like, I'm not part of the royal you, though. Kneeling did work for me. I said, that is exactly how you should protest that.
Well
you
said.
have a platform, and millions of people will see you every week. Do it.
Sure.
And then you get fined and kicked out of the program and you're not allowed back.
And that's not okay.
Now you can't kneel.
No, not okay either.
And I also think
it's that, but now kneeling has become something that's been taken away from them as a way to peacefully protest, because now it just is a reminder of something.
I've thought about that too. Yeah.
Well, and again, the source, if you go back to this horrible person that kneeled on this guy's neck, even when he was begging for air,
which shouldn't have happened in the first place,
killed him like an animal. I think it's bad to say, well, that happened because we didn't take the kneeling thing seriously. And now we're going to have to set a building.
I think it's bad to say that too.
I don't think that's cause and effect. I think that guy needs to be persecuted, just like a criminal, like any murderer.
Well, he has a track record. That's something that's come out too.
The police, so does the department. Apparently the department was super corrupt and had a history of covering shit like that up. And they're uncovering some shit up there.
Which is good. And I've also said to my wife, I was like, with that fucking knowledge, those people that are involved with that, they need to be thrown in jail and fired 110%, and then rebuild it from the ground up. But don't burn it to the ground to start.
Right.
Like that's.
But at what point? Like I said before, at what point when peaceful protest doesn't help? What are you supposed to do after that?
And the honest answer is I don't know.
Because honestly, right now, everyone's watching.
Yeah.
They got some attention, because the moment they started setting buildings on fire, that guy got arrested real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say,
because before that, he was just under investigation.
Yeah,
he was sitting at home, and then a building got caught on fire, and all of a sudden he got arrested. So
yeah, they didn't go after him until shit went bad.
And then all of a sudden, now people are paying attention.
Mm-hmm. No, that's all fair. And the answer to what else should they do is I don't know, but I do know in my heart of hearts that I think anything violent is not going to help.
Right. Well, no, the third.
But I don't know.
I mean, I agree.
Is.
Violence doesn't solve it.
But you're not wrong. It got attention, so I don't know.
But you can't say that it wasn't effective.
It was effective, and that scares me too.
Yeah.
Because I still think it's not the right answer.
Yeah, but
it worked.
Wow, that's big. It was effective.
I'm not saying it wasn't effective.
Right, but it was super effective.
Yeah, just to be clear,
for
those of you that have followed me on Facebook and may have been pissed off by anything I've posted, I've never once tried to imply that it wasn't effective or didn't work. I just don't think it's right.
I feel like you're talking about something very specific.
I am, but I'm not going to get into it.
I'm going to smell this really pretty candle because it makes me feel better.
Sure.
That's good.
But I'm just like, just because I don't think it's the right thing to do doesn't mean that I think that what they were also doing was the only way either. There's got to be something else that can work, but I don't know what that is, and I'm willing to admit that. But I do disagree with the violent
There's two things
attitude
possibly that are a solution that's viable. But let me talk about the third picture I sent you guys, and it was a van, and it was some of the protesters, and they look like they're being peaceful in the picture, but a girl was holding up a sign, and it said real clearly, "White silence equals violence." And again, when I first saw that, and I thought, just because I didn't go out and set anything on fire today, like, you're accusing me of committing a violent act, like this is unfair, and I've been polarized. And again, I kind of got my stupid fucking ego out of the way, calmed down, looked into it a little bit, and I, real quick, what were your guys' initial reactions to that picture?
I can't disagree with it, because it's something that has been happening for a long time where we just turned a blind eye to it. Not happening to us. Oh well. Sure. And that's a really shitty mentality to have. You shouldn't think like that.
Respect.
Yeah, it's weird.
However, that's something that people have talked about too. That's ingrained in us, and that's something that we have to fight against in our own mind to go. Just because it's not happening to me doesn't mean that it's not a problem. It's definitely a problem, and it needs to be addressed.
That's huge.
So I agree that silence equals violence. I don't agree white silence. I'm painfully egalitarian. I think silence of any kind equals it. And I think that's correct. The problem that I have, again, with all of these things, I don't have a following that's worth a damn on social media, but I still speak out on stuff. In this specific instance with what's going on, I spoke out against both sides, which was not popular. But the point is, I do say stuff, and I don't stay silent, and I resent being grouped in with people that do.
Just
because
you're white.
I think it's wrong. Because I'm white.
Because you're white and you've never done it.
And here's okay, I'm just going to go ahead and fucking say it because it's super unpopular.
Get me.
And
this is a free speech platform.
What I'm saying is within its own bracket of circumstance, like I think everything is in life, and you have to examine it individually. I'm not trying to discount how much worse it is for other people, but there is something racist about dismissing my opinion because I'm white. And that is a problem too. I care about all of you out there that are listening and anyone that's not listening. And the thing I shared on social media before seeing people that I care about and love deeply, like Spencer did, saying, this is why we riot, posting giant essays on why rioting and violent protest is the answer now, or saying outright, you go, I'm proud of you, burn those buildings. What I said was learn to love your enemies. And I don't say that lightly because it's not easy.
I had a lot of respect for you for posting that because ultimately that's what it comes down to. No matter how much you want to admit it or not, you don't get to that next stage without learning to accept the things you hate and learning to love the people that you have issue with. You can't get there by hate. It just doesn't ever end. You always hit a dead end. You've got to learn to somehow overcome all that stuff. And that's why I hate seeing things like this. It absolutely, it's not a step forward. It's a step back because it's hate-based.
Yeah.
And that the core of everything, I had the same thing. I felt like, well, wait a minute. Just to say that I can't say, hey, you should be nice to each other because I'm white, that's racist. That's just as racist as anything that's happened.
I wouldn't say just as.
When you say you don't count because of your color, that's as racist as anything that's ever happened.
Yeah, the core of it's the same, but the degree to which it's enforced. And
I'm not saying a guy stepped on my neck, but I'm saying to discount anybody because of their race, white people or black people or any people, that's all racism. Now, I went home thinking that, and I was mad. And I was like, dude, I can't even go on social media and say, guys, calm down, let's try peace. Because I'm white, and a white guy doesn't know what it's like. But I know what peace is. And I saw people posting things like, for instance, AutoZone can put their windows back in. They can rebuild another Target, but we can't bring back like the father of those children who died. And I was like, that's apples and oranges. You didn't have to burn the Target down.
Yeah.
So I took a lot of issue with the people that were rioting kind of carelessly and senselessly, and also the people who were opportunists that really didn't care.
No, they were
showing
using
up
to
get free shit.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
You mean the people in Target who are laughing and like
taking TVs and shit?
You could watch them having fun doing it. You're like, okay, it's
a piece of shit. I'm not going to mention any names, but there's some people I'm still connected with on Facebook who used to work for me who live in the Nashville area that were literally posting, what time are y'all going looting? I have a list of things I need to get.
Yeah.
Just putting that out there. But going back to that picture of white silence equals violence, there's something offensive about that. And there is something a little racist about that. However, I stared at that picture over and over again. And I stared at the girl that's holding the sign. And there's a sincerity in her eyes. Like, it looks like she means it. And I started thinking about it a little bit more. And I think if you alter it to not... I mean, again, the sign, it's a brief statement. But maybe it makes more sense if you say white silence leads to violence. again, what you said, if too many people just sit back and watch it happen and let it, and again, I don't have a whole lot of opportunities to stop. I don't encounter things like that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see people, you know what I mean? Nobody is doing a racist thing in front of me for me to run up and stop most of the time. Mm-hmm. But if I saw it, I would definitely try to stop it.
Yeah, I think I would too.
I think most people would. And so it's weird.
I think most people we know would.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely think if the message is, hey man, you can't just let this happen even if you are white, I agree with that 1,000,000%. I think we're all in this together and everybody's got to do their part to kind of end systemic racism.
I grew up having ingrained in me that all people are equal and should be afforded the same opportunities. Again, egalitarianism. And having that reinforced in popular fiction, such as I missed the part where that's my problem being the thing that leads to Uncle Ben's death in Spider-Man. Like, complacency.
We're back in comics again.
It matters. Complacency is a problem.
I agree.
Totally. But
let me
everything is us and them right now. That's...
Well, let me go back a little. I just want to kind of wrap this up with my little epiphany with these images.
I have something I want you to read.
Okay.
I have something.
Well, after all this kind of stuff, and I was frustrated being told that, like, I can't even promote peace because I'm white and, you know, things like that. And I was frustrated. I went home, I took a nap, and I was just like, I can't. The world is too stupid today. I can't handle it, you know. Mm-hmm. And I woke up from my nap, and I was standing in the kitchen, and I was like, God, dude, this is the first time in 40 plus years that I felt like I didn't count, or my feelings didn't count because of my race. Mm-hmm. And when I thought that, a light went off. Mm-hmm. And I realized this is what it's like for other people. All the time. Yeah. And in 40 years, it's the first time I've ever felt that way. And that, to me, is probably what white privilege is. Mm-hmm. And again, not saying anybody's bad or wrong, but standing in my kitchen, I knew it. I knew, like, wow, one day of this made me feel extremely frustrated and angry. And like I just couldn't deal with people. Imagine your whole life being like that. Even if it's just a difference of opinion or being marginalized or being looked at differently, whatever. So I got it. After the whole thing was over. And I kind of had like a big moment where I was like, shit, if this was every day for me, I might feel a lot different and I might go out and break something. Mm-hmm. I hope I wouldn't, but you know.
That's fair.
When push comes to shove.
What's this?
It's something that was shared on Instagram by a good friend of ours, and I just think it should be read out loud because I agree with it a lot. Yeah, if you don't mind.
Do you think it's what we should end on? Because I've got something too, and if we should...
No, I've got more too.
Okay.
No, we're fine.
Okay.
But what I'm saying, I can't read out loud really well. I always stutter my speech.
Same, sure.
Okay. The problem is that white people see racism as conscious hate, when racism is actually bigger than that. Racism is a complex system of social and political levers and pulleys set up generations ago to continue working on the behalf of whites at other people's expense, whether whites know it or not. Racism is an insidious cultural disease. It is so insidious that it doesn't care if you are a white person who likes black people. It's still going to find a way to infect how you deal with people who don't look like you. Yes, racism looks like hate, but hate is just one manifestation. Privilege is another. Access is another. Ignorance is another. Apathy is another, and so on. So while I see people who say no one is born racist, it remains a powerful system that we're immediately born into. That's kind of like the first picture, you know, where it said, whether you know it or not, you've benefited from this system, and other people have lost because of it. It's like being born into air. You take it in as soon as you breathe. It's not a cold that you can get over. There is no anti-racist certification class. It's a set of socioeconomic traps and cultural values that are fired up every time we interact with the world. It is a thing you have to keep scooping out of the boat of your life to keep you from drowning in it. I know it's hard work, but it's the price you pay owning everything. Interesting.
I was kind of curious how you guys felt about that.
Well, again, I identify that kind of like the first picture. Whether you think it or not, you've benefited from a framework that is inherently racist, whether we believe it or not, and it can't change unless everybody changes it, no matter how good of a guy you are. You know, like one good person can't fix the system, I guess, is the idea. And I get it. Something's got to get done, man. It's not okay.
Your thing, Hunter? Or do you want to comment? Are you still thinking about that?
Okay, no, I guess to that point real quick, the part where it is systemic and it's socioeconomically ingrained and that you have to scoop it out of your boat over and over, I think is 100% right, because I will go ahead and admit, just from what I've seen in popular media, and then what I have had bombarded into me from. I don't have a racist family, so I'm not calling my family out, but just like we live in the South, so I have experienced anti-persons of color racism before. There's small parts of me every now and then that can like see a person of color and worry about whether or not they're, a gangster or something like that, which is what was ingrained in rap media and all that, and popular media so much. But I agree completely with the post because those are rare, and anytime it pops up in me, I'm immediately ashamed of it, and I choose actively to squash it down and cast it out of my brain because I prefer to live and walk in faith that we all are on the same planet and we're the same race and everyone just wants to be at peace, and that it is wrong.
Which is scientifically accurate, by the way. If you go by the fossil record, like we all came from like one species. Like so there's no difference in anybody except these socioeconomic.
But I think it's fair to say that it does get in the boat and you have to be able to scoop it out. And I hate admitting that stuff occurs to me, but I think the power that I have as a person and how I was raised by my parents and the media that I chose to consume was to go, whenever that crops up, to go, that's not right, and push it out and ignore it.
And for the record, I think you guys are doing everything right. I hope I'm doing everything right, too. We're probably not the ones that need to hear this. Mm-hmm. But there's probably somebody somewhere that was maybe on the fence.
Say that, and then I feel like that just means that we maybe dig down a little deeper and hear it a little more.
Like you said, it's getting everybody's attention, and it's making people think, and that's got to move it forward in some ways. But I just wish the violence would end over.
So something that I saw a lot that's been used to justify it was riots are the language of the unheard, which is a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. And a lot of people have been using that because of his stature and who he was for the civil rights movement to say that you're wrong for being anti-riot. And because I have the wherewithal to not take something out of context, I chose to look that speech up and read it.
Ooh, this should be good.
And that's what I brought today. I'm going to qualify right before I read this, and I'm not going to... If we want to comment on it, that's fine, but I'm not going to. I'm going to let his words speak for themselves.
You're going to tell everybody that you're black.
No.
You're like, I'm black now, and here's what I have to say.
No.
Well, I know what I think I know the paragraph you're about to read, and his granddaughter and his son have both come out and said, don't misquote Martin Luther King. That's don't use these words that are you're completely missing the point.
Oh shit! Read the real quote. I'm anxious.
I'm going
to
to.
Hear this.
So the qualifier I have very quickly is I'm only saying this because in the course of all this on social media, I have seen put out there by persons of all backgrounds and colors the idea that if you're white, your opinion on this doesn't matter. That you don't have a right to say something. And I've also seen a post where someone said, don't try to tell me that you think you know how Martin Luther King Jr. would act because clearly none of you have heard or read any of his speeches, which I took issue with because I'm a big fan of his and I have heard and read his speeches.
That's a shit statement. Nobody can say that. Nobody can. You've never read this thing that I'm pretty sure you've never read for some reason.
But I just wanted to give
I'm also really sorry I posted. I didn't mean
I love you anyways. I wanted to give the background for why I'm about to say
Casey says you're definitely not black.
If you think my whiteness means that I don't have a right to support what I'm about to read to you that came out of his own mouth, then you are inherently racist and part of the problem, is my stance. That said, I love everybody, so hopefully you don't get angered by that. I will say, I'm not paraphrasing, but I'm not reading the whole paragraph. I'm getting to the point here. So in quotes from his speech, The Other America, I wanted to say something about the fact that we have lived over these last 2 or 3 summers with agony and we have seen our cities going up in flames. And I would be the first to say that I'm still committed to militant, powerful, massive nonviolence as the most potent weapon in grappling with the problem from a direct action point of view. I'm absolutely convinced that a riot merely intensifies the fears of the white community while relieving the guilt. And I feel that we must always work with an effective, powerful weapon and method that brings about tangible results. But it is not enough for me to stand before you tonight and condemn riots. It would be morally irresponsible for me to do that without at the same time condemning the contingent, intolerable conditions that exist in our society. These conditions are the things that cause individuals to feel that they have no other alternative than to engage in violent rebellions to get attention. And I must say tonight that a riot is the language of the unheard. And what is it America has failed to hear? It has failed to hear the plight of the Negro poor has worsened over the last 12 or 15 years. It has failed to hear that the promises of freedom and justice have not been met. And it has failed to hear that large segments of white society are more concerned about tranquility and the status quo than about justice and humanity, end quote. That's the paragraph where it's the language of the unheard is taken out of context. I'm here to say that I agree with it, the entire statement, and for those of you, if you ever have questioned it, I've clearly not lived my life as openly as I thought I have. I agree that a lot of people are more concerned about tranquility and the status quo, and I disagree with that mindset. And what I care about is justice and humanity for everyone.
That's the whole out of sight, out of mind kind of a thing.
Yes.
And these are not new concepts.
Nope.
Like when I was young, 1.5 million years ago. Thanks, you fucking assholes. Go ahead.
I was going to say
you were about to say something.
I didn't say anything.
You were going to be like, I didn't realize that they had other races back at the time of the dinosaurs.
You weren't alive for dinosaurs. That's why you're a fan of the Elasmotherium.
Listen,
that was the Ice Age afterwards.
I'm going to kill you. I'm going to riot in your ass. I'm going to take a TV from your house. Listen,
there's room.
Listen. I don't know how to explain it. Okay, anyway. Moving beyond that. But no. These are big things that a lot of people were writing music about, protesting about, talking about, like in the early 90s.
Yep.
Because a lot of stuff was going on. There was the LA race riots that happened back in the Rodney King era. I mean, I remember all this. This is not new. This is just the next phase of the whole thing. The one thing that sucks is that the problem hasn't gone away.
Yeah.
It's that we're still having these problems, and it was over police brutality, and it was police brutality of systemic racism. It sucks. We got to do something about it. I agree. We're kind of going a little long, but this is important. I don't care if this episode's a little long, but I want to say one thing. I saw some of my friends who are on social media that are kind of right-leaning real quickly got defensive about Trump, and they were like, oh, it didn't take long for you guys to blame this on Trump, even though he had nothing to do. I want to say something about that. And everybody knows I'm not right or left, like I go other ways, but like, I will say this. This is the biggest downfall of a guy like Donald Trump, okay? Mm-hmm. A person like him and a lot of his supporters feel like, what do you care what he says and does? What do you care how he acts? You got a massive tax break. Unemployment was the lowest it's ever been. Why don't you just like take the benefits and wait on the next president? If you don't, why do you have to be so mad? Like he put more money in your pocket and did all this stuff for the economy and blah, blah, blah.
Are you about to read his tweet?
No, but my point is this. That doesn't cut the mustard. There's a lot of people in this country who need to feel a certain way in order to feel good, to act good. We talked about this maybe 1 episode, 2 episodes ago when I was talking to Steve. I was explaining like you can only act from how you feel. If you feel poorly about things, you're going to act that way.
Sure.
And when people believe that you've got a racist, terrible president that doesn't see you and only speaks out against you, this is why you get this kind of stuff. If this would have happened, I feel like if this would have happened during the Obama administration, it might have been different. And I don't think he was a better president, but my point is the people in America felt something.
Better about him.
He soothed them when he was talking on TV. And again, as minor as that may be compared to policies that actually affect your civil liberties or whatever, people need that. They need a leader. They don't just need some blowhard that's going to rant on Twitter all the time and incite more division and incite more. You know what I'm saying? And I get if I had to point out one big issue with Trump, that's it. Is he divides people.
He does.
He gaslights and he divides, and he's just not that leader that they need when there's race tensions and things like that. They need somebody a lot more level-headed. And it doesn't have to be somebody like super far left. It could just be somebody level-headed like Tulsi or somebody that can speak to the people and calm them down. Did you see the speech Killer Mike made in Atlanta?
It's heartbreaking.
Phenomenal.
I didn't.
Phenomenal. It was incredible. You should look it up right now. Or as soon as we're done here.
Yeah,
you guys go. I'm going to look it up.
It's phenomenal. And that's exactly what people need to hear, is stuff like that. He goes, if we need to beat these people, let's beat them at the voting booth. Let's beat them with the system.
That's what the mayor of Atlanta said. And that's what I was saying.
She was standing right next to him when he made the speech. And yes. And she also said Trump needs to just shut up. He's only making things worse.
Agreed.
Totally agreed. Like the more, and he thinks he keeps doing these tweets where he's like, we're going to stop. He thinks he's,
when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Is that something that are
idiot? And he called everybody thugs. And again, I get when people are setting buildings on fire, it's hard not to go, hey, fucking quit, you thugs. But this is about something bigger than that. And you need somebody, you don't need somebody that's just going to fire off on Twitter during this. And that's his biggest downfall, is that he's not a leader. He may be a good businessman. He may be a good economist. You know, like your taxes may have gotten better. But also these riots opened up because people feel like they don't have a leader that sees them, you know. So that's my whole thing about that. And I hate that people feel like that. And I hope that we actually get somebody that maybe isn't corrupt, but also can lead the people, you know. I don't know that there's anybody like that running this year.
I feel like Joe Biden's not that guy.
Did you see the video of Joe Biden shitting himself on live TV on CNN or whatever? He was doing like a FaceTime call and he goes, I mean, obviously, it's obviously watery. And like he was talking to the governor of some state and the governor goes like,
you should probably cut this end part out of our important episode.
It was so fucking funny. He goes, well, but the thing is, the jobs and he caught it right on camera and everything. It was live.
They've got to find somebody else.
He's got physical and mental incontinence.
Dude, it was so funny. And the guy's face, like I kept listening to it and then somebody pointed out, like, look at the guy's face. And you could tell the governor hears it and he goes, oh, well, Joe, you okay over there? Dude, he's got the trots. Anyway. What do you guys think about these paid protesters? Do you believe in that?
I do.
Do you see that video? Like a single white guy busting all those windows, and like the black dudes were like, "Dude, stop! What are you doing? What are you doing?" He like walked in front of the AutoZone and smashed
the big gas mask.
Yes,
and it turned out that he was a police officer.
Something
in a town in the town over.
He walked away, and they were like, "Dude, what are you doing? You just busted the windows out of the AutoZone." And he goes, "Get away from me! I'm going to fucking punch you." But the protesters were trying to stop him, and he just like fucking faded off into the distance.
Did you guys see the Flint, Michigan thing where the sheriff showed up with his officers and took off all their armored gear and put the weapons down and walked with the people?
Well,
it gave me a warm, fuzzy feeling.
He took off all of his gear and he goes, "What can I do to help?" And they said, "Walk with us." And he said, "All right, let's go."
And then they were all patting each other on the back, and it was real heartwarming. And I was like, that's what we need. That's what we need. We could go, dude, how do we...
Then you have NYPD where they are holding like a barrier to like peacefully protest, and they're set up, and the cops just go boom and just knock all these people over. Did you see the clip of the dude on the horse that walked over the chick?
Yeah, I saw that. Just trampled the fuck out of her.
Just to be clear, I think all the rioting is horrible and it should not be allowed legally or otherwise. But at the same time, now that we have video footage of all those cops in New York, find out who the fuck they are and arrest them.
Get them. Seriously, get them, dude. There's good cops and bad cops. Like, it's not all just bad cops.
I have what is it? One bad apple ruins the whole bunch?
Yeah, well, there's a whole bunch of bad apples, but now they're on video. Will Smith said that. He goes, look, racism isn't getting worse. It's getting filmed. Like, it's always been like this, but now you're seeing it on social media, and they can't get away. They can't hide, which is good.
It is good. We have footage of those people. Find all of them and get rid of them.
But what do you think about these people that were, like, from out of state that were coming in inciting, like, the violence and stuff, and they claim they were paid? And it turns out that's a felony. Like, one of the governors was like, look, the governor of Minnesota, I think, was like, hey, it's a felony to cross state lines to incite violence, and we're going to prosecute the people who did that.
That's the answer. They have all this doxing technology where they...
Well, it's also, you think about it, crisis actors.
Yeah. That's what it is. So use your footage to find those people and get rid of them.
They asked the mayor of Atlanta, they go, who do you think these people are? Do you think it's Antifa? Do you think it's, is it like extreme right? Or wait, he goes, I don't know. But all the people that were arrested weren't from Atlanta. What the fuck is that?
Yep. I mean, listen.
We're in a simulation.
We're getting into some weird conspiracy theory kind of stuff here.
We're in a fucking movie.
But when you talk about crisis actors, it's a little odd that a handful of people are in all these mass shootings at all times.
Well, there was the guy. Have you seen the guys with the white armbands? They took a bunch of photos from the different riots across the United States, and there were men with police-issued boots and white armbands, and the white armbands are supposed to be like, don't shoot them because they're cops, but they were rioting right next to the people. And like, they had a whole collection of those photographs. Ron Paul posted a big thing of it, and he goes, just so you know, there are deep cover operatives in there with you. Just be aware. Like, this isn't you against the government. The government's controlling you still.
And this honestly gets all the way back to
fucking
my issues.
The deep state?
The deep state. The New World Order.
The fucking Federal Reserve's running off with all the money right now. Also, whatever happened to COVID-19? Where's the fucking virus?
Well,
it's still here.
The numbers have spiked recently.
Oh, they've gone way up.
And they're going to go up.
They doubled in like 2 days.
You know how we were reopening and now there's been a... I'm not going to get into that.
I'll go on and tell you right now, we're not reclosing. They're gonna.
But I think that might be the intent behind it.
They're all spiking up. All the virus numbers are spiking up, of course, with rioting and Memorial Day weekend, what have you. The numbers are spiking, and they're just going to go, we should have done herd immunity a long time ago. That's why when you guys sent me those pictures and you were...
On Cumberland, all those people there.
Yeah, and all those people piled up, and you're like, I thought there was a virus. I was like, herd immunity. There you go. That's what they wanted from the get-go.
But the thing is, the numbers are going up. Like, we were down to like 27 at one point.
And we're up to 60 now. Something like that.
Closing statements, anybody?
Yeah.
Fuck 2020.
In the ass.
Not
the good way.
I hope I'm not misremembering who it was. I think it was Trevor Noah a few years ago. But whoever it was, if it's possible to be pro Black Lives Matter and pro police at the same time, then it is also possible to be anti the murder of George Floyd and anti rioting. And I'm going to leave you with the fact that I personally think the riots are wrong and will never approve of them. And I don't understand you defending them. But we're allowed to disagree. And you can know that I feel that way about it and know that if you're out there and you're alive, I love you regardless.
That's fair. I'd just like to tell everybody, take care of each other. Don't forget to take care of each other. Like at the end of this, we're all way more connected than we are divided. And the media definitely wants you to think we're more divided because the people who sell the panic sell the pill. So look at like
the COVID vaccine.
Like I was telling you guys earlier, my car broke down earlier today, and like I had interactions with 4 people on the way here. One, the first person who stopped was a police officer to see why I was on the side of the road. And he was an older white guy, and he was super nice. He stayed with me until I got a tow truck on the way. And then he left. He was a very nice man. The guy that showed up was a young white dude loaded with tats, and he was also very, very, very nice. He took me where I needed to go. The mechanic was an Asian guy. He was extremely, extremely nice to me. And then my Uber driver to finally take me to my car was a black guy. All of us got along just great. And if you hadn't been on social media, you'd never know that there were any tensions between anybody.
Must be nice being white.
Maybe.
Sorry.
Zing.
Well, I feel bad now. I took the wind out of that.
Well, no. I mean, like I was white the whole time. You know, painfully white. I couldn't dance. It was terrible.
Final statements from me.
Definitely don't watch Fury.
No, don't watch Fury.
Fucking.
And I think honestly, as shitty as this is going to sound, I don't mean it to sound as shitty. Kneeling at a football game doesn't look as bad now, does it?
Zing.
I'll get behind that.
Oh my.